A studio executive told Clint Eastwood, "Audiences won't accept this dark ending. We need changes." Clint's response was simple. He would destroy the film before he'd compromise it. The studio's decision became legendary in Hollywood. December 1991. A screening room at Warner Brothers in Burbank. Clint Eastwood had just shown the rough cut of Unforgiven to the people who controlled its fate. This was the film he'd been waiting a decade to make. The film that would either cement his legacy or prove every critic right who said he'd lost his edge. When the lights came up, nobody spoke. The silence stretched past uncomfortable into something heavier. Something that felt like dread. Unforgiven was unlike anything Clint had ever directed. Unlike any Western anyone had made in a generation. The hero wasn't heroic, he was a broken alcoholic who'd sworn off killing, dragged back into violence by poverty and desperation. The gunfights weren't glamorous, they were ugly, brutal, terrifying in their realism. The ending offered nothing resembling triumph, just a hollow, sad, morally bankrupt conclusion that refused to redeem anyone. It was everything Westerns weren't supposed to be. Everything test audiences historically rejected. Everything studio executives lost sleep over. Clint sat at the back of the room. 61 years old. Patient. Expression revealing nothing. He'd been directing for 2 decades through Malpaso Productions. Had final cut approval written into every contract. But he still needed Warner Brothers to distribute the film properly. To market it. To believe in it. Right now, judging from the faces in front of him, belief was in short supply. The head of distribution, we'll call him Robert Kellerman, broke the silence first. "Clint, there's real power here. Genuine power. But I have serious concerns about commercial viability." "Such as?" "The ending primarily. It's extremely dark, extremely violent. Your character kills multiple people in cold blood, including an unarmed man. Then he rides away, and a title card tells us he disappeared. There's no redemption, no resolution, nothing for audiences to hold on to. That's the point." Kellerman nodded slowly. "I understand the artistic intention, but commercially speaking, people come to a Clint Eastwood Western expecting certain things. They expect the hero to be heroic. They expect justice to prevail. They expect a happy ending, a satisfying ending. Not necessarily happy, but satisfying. This feels incomplete, like we cut away before the real conclusion." Another executive jumped in. The VP of production. "The violence is also a concern. When Ned is whipped to death. When your character executes the unarmed saloon owner. It's visceral in a way that may alienate mainstream audiences. We're worried about the rating, about comfort levels." "It's supposed to be uncomfortable," Clint said. "That's the entire thesis. Violence has consequences. Killing changes you. This isn't an adventure. It's an examination of what violence actually costs." Kellerman leaned forward. "Clint, there's $14 million invested here. We need this to perform. And right now, I'm not confident mainstream audiences will embrace something this dark. We need to discuss adjustments." "What kind of adjustments?" "The ending needs work. Maybe money doesn't kill the unarmed man. Maybe he shows mercy, demonstrates he's truly changed. Maybe we add a scene of him living peacefully with his children. Something hopeful. Something to balance the darkness." Clint's voice went flat. "You want me to change the ending? We want you to enhance it. Give audiences something to hold on to. Right now, they're going to leave feeling empty. That's not what people expect from a Clint Eastwood picture." Clint stood. "We need a different conversation. My office. Tomorrow morning. 9 o'clock. He walked out without another word. The next morning, Kellerman and 2 executives arrived at Malpaso Productions. Clint was waiting with his producer and his attorney. The tension was immediate. "Let me explain something," Clint began. "No pleasantries, no small talk. I've waited 10 years to make this film. David Webb Peoples wrote this script in the mid-'80s. I knew immediately it was special. But I also knew I wasn't old enough to play William Money. I needed to age into the role. Needed to look weathered enough. needed to have lived enough to understand what this character carries inside him. He paused. I waited until I had the experience and the resources to make it exactly right. Every frame, every line, every moment of violence, every uncomfortable truth. This is the film I intended, the film it needs to be. Clint, we're not trying to destroy your vision. There's no such thing as a small adjustment. You change the ending, you destroy everything. The entire point is that violence doesn't lead to redemption. William Money kills those men not because it's heroic, because he's the same killer he's always been underneath. He doesn't change. He doesn't improve. He survives. That's what violence actually does to people, but audiences don't want that truth, the VP said. They want to see the hero triumph. They want to feel good leaving the theater. Then they can watch a different movie. This one tells the truth. If Warner Brothers isn't comfortable distributing truth, Warner Brothers doesn't have to distribute it. The executives exchanged glances. This was escalating beyond what they'd anticipated. Are you threatening to take it elsewhere? Kellerman asked carefully. No. I'm saying if you require changes to the ending or the violence or the tone, I will shelve the film. Lock it in a vault. Nobody sees it. Ever. I'd rather have no film than a compromised film. Silence. This wasn't a negotiating tactic. This was a line drawn in permanent marker. Clint, be reasonable. You can't throw away 2 years of work and $14 million over minor improvements. They're not improvements. They're compromises. And I don't compromise on things that matter. This matters. It says something important about violence, about the West, about the myths we tell ourselves. You change the ending. You turn it into just another Western, where the good guy wins and everyone goes home happy. That's not what I made. Clint's attorney spoke. Gentlemen, I'll remind you that Mr. Eastwood's contract guarantees final cut approval on all Malpaso productions. This isn't a negotiation. Mr. Eastwood is informing you of his decision, not requesting permission. Kellerman's face flushed. Final cut doesn't obligate us to release a film we don't believe in. If Clint refuses reasonable adjustments, we can choose not to distribute. Then don't, Clint said simply. I'd rather the film never be seen than be seen wrong. I've made 20 films. I'll make more. But I won't make them badly to satisfy executives who think they know my work better than I do. The standoff stretched. Kellerman was calculating, trying to determine if Clint was bluffing, if pressure would work, if there was any leverage left. But Clint wasn't bluffing. Everyone in that room understood it. He'd walked away from Warner Brothers once before, in 1968. Built Malpaso into one of Hollywood's most successful production companies. He didn't need the studio. They needed him. Can we have 24 hours to discuss internally? Take whatever time you need. The film stays the same either way. The executives left. Clint's producer turned to him. You'd really shelve it? Without hesitation. I didn't wait a decade to make a compromised version. This film or no film. 24 hours later, Kellerman called. Warner Brothers would distribute Unforgiven exactly as Clint had cut it. No changes to the ending. No softening of violence. No redemption arc. The studio was betting $14 million that Clint understood his audience better than they did. Unforgiven opened in August 1992. The marketing embraced the darkness. This wasn't nostalgia. This was something raw, something honest, something uncompromising. Critics responded with astonishment. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. The New York Times called it a masterpiece. Variety declared it Clint's finest directorial achievement. Every review highlighted exactly what the studio had feared: the moral complexity, the unflinching violence, the refusal to provide easy answers. The ending Kellerman had wanted to change William Money killing an unarmed man, riding into darkness, disappearing from history, was singled out as one of the most powerful conclusions in Western cinema. Everything they'd been afraid of became the film's greatest strength. The box office told the same story. Opening weekend, $15 million. strong for a dark Western, with no young stars and a hard R rating. But then, something unusual happened. Something that almost never happens with challenging, morally complex films. It held. Week after week, audiences kept coming. Word of mouth was extraordinary. People weren't just recommending it, they were insisting friends see it. This wasn't just entertainment. This was something that needed to be witnessed. The film played theaters for months, crossed 100 million domestic. International audiences responded even more powerfully. Final worldwide gross, $159 million against a $14 million budget, over 11 times its cost. One of the most profitable films of 1992. Proof that audiences were hungry for exactly the kind of uncompromising adult filmmaking the studio had been terrified to release. But the real vindication came in March 1993. The Academy Awards. Unforgiven received 9 nominations. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor for Clint, Best Supporting Actor for Gene Hackman. The studio executives who'd wanted to soften the ending sat watching as the film they'd nearly killed swept the ceremony. Gene Hackman won Best Supporting Actor for playing the brutal sheriff. In his speech, he thanked Clint for having the courage to tell a difficult story honestly. The film won Best Editing. Editor Joel Cox thanked Clint for trusting the vision. When Clint won Best Director, his speech was brief. He thanked his crew, his producers. He pointedly did not thank any studio executives for believing in the film or supporting his vision. He'd believed in it himself. That had been enough. And when Unforgiven won Best Picture, the night's biggest honor, Clint's acceptance captured everything. I've been lucky to work with people who trusted the story we were telling, who understood what we were trying to say. This film is exactly what it needed to be. I'm grateful it found its audience. 4 Oscars, $159 million. Universal critical acclaim. Everything Warner Brothers had been certain wouldn't happen with a dark, violent, morally complex Western had happened anyway. Robert Kellerman sat through that ceremony watching the film he'd wanted to change win award after award. Every trophy was a reminder of how wrong he'd been, how wrong the studio's instincts had been, how close they'd come to destroying a masterpiece with their fear. After that night, Warner Brothers never again suggested changes to a Clint Eastwood film. They'd learned what should have been obvious from the start. When Clint Eastwood says a film is exactly what it needs to be, you trust him. The executives who'd pushed for changes quietly moved to less prominent positions over the following years. Their judgment had been exposed. Their instincts about audiences had been proven catastrophically wrong. Their attempt to override one of cinema's greatest filmmakers had been documented in the most public way possible at the Academy Awards. Clint kept making films. The Bridges of Madison County, Mystic River, $1 Million Baby, Gran Torino, American Sniper, dozens more over the next 3 decades. Many of them dark, many of them challenging, none of them compromised. Unforgiven became more than a great film. It became a case study taught in film schools and business programs alike. A lesson in artistic integrity, defeating commercial calculation. The story of a director willing to destroy his own work rather than betray his vision, and a warning to executives who think they understand art better than the artists creating it. Today, Unforgiven is considered one of the greatest westerns ever made, one of Clint Eastwood's finest achievements. The ending Warner Brothers wanted to change dark, violent, offering no redemption is studied as a perfect example of how to conclude a revisionist western. Because Clint understood something the studio didn't. Audiences don't always want comfort. Sometimes they want truth. And truth, delivered with courage and craft, is more powerful than any focus-grouped happy ending could ever be. If this story showed you that the right choice is rarely the safe choice, and that sometimes the most powerful move is refusing to compromise on what matters, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember that integrity has a way of being vindicated. What would you have done in that screening room? Tell me in the comments.